So we go to our penultimate race of the 2022 BNL Karting Series season. This time it's DD2. Let's have a look at your final starting grid of the season. So it's Advantage Glenn Van Parijs, who starts from pole position and looks to not only be one of a handful of drivers that have secured 3 titles, but he could also join Kai Gillet's this weekend in BNL Karting Series history. Chris Harnen from the Netherlands will line up alongside him on the front row, with Mark Kimber from the Great Britain, Van Parijs' closest challenger, in third place. Patrick Knowles Lockmellis will be alongside the Briton in place 4. Lawrence Seyfried and Matthias Jere Jacobsen will line up on row number 3 with Kilian Gerhardt and Devin Segardi. Maxime Dirks and Yannick Jacobs ran at the top 10, with Fabien Bock, Jules Cousin, Ragnar Veres, Hugo Schwarzer, Jaro Dekkers, Matis Malinovskis and Anthony Millet, the latter 2 who were out of the previous race due to an incident early doors. So what Glenn Van Parijs needs to do is to win, and he needs Mark Kimber to finish 3rd or lower to pick up the title. And a very good afternoon to Rotax Racing's very own Jen Wade, who has been watching all day. Good afternoon, Jen, to you and Daryl. Hope you're both keeping well. So very much a repeat of what we had yesterday, where qualifying was under wet weather conditions and the track evolved to such a point where we've had fantastic flat-out dry weather racing all weekend over the course of the 27 races that we've had all the way through. We're at race number 26, 27th still to come. So the red lights are on the starting gantry for the last time for DD2 this season. Who's going to take the title? Van Parijs or Kimber? They now head into the tram lines. The revs start to build. Are we ready? Are we steady? Lights are out first time. We're underway. Van Parijs leads the field into turn 1 and 2. Harden trying to keep it all around the outside. And he's doing so. And that's a great little bit of defending there from Chris Harden. So keeping Mark Kimber in 3rd position. Good start by Lawrence Seyfried, I might add, who's now up to 4th. Drama for Kimber going through into turn number 7, and he's dropped out of the top 5. Well, I'm not too sure what happened there, whether there was a possible little assist or it just got a bit too close for comfort. Everyone got squeezed, and Kimber was on the inside. If that had happened later on in the race. The robust manoeuvre there from Devin Segardi from Estonia through turn 12. But Van Parijs now leads the way. Chris Harden. Kimber has dropped all the way down to 8th position. If he finishes 2nd, he will take the title, but he's having to fight for it. A DNF in the first final yesterday put him at the mercy of Glenn Van Parijs, who is leading, but by just 0.4 of a second ahead of Chris Harden. Matthias Jere Jacobsen now rounds out the top 3 positions, with Seyfried currently in 4th. So Kimber has got to start getting a move on. Looks like he's got Kilian Gerhardt just ahead of him. Kimber again sideways. I don't think Kimber's going to have he's not going to have an easy ride at all. Not at all. Sideways, that's uncharacteristic of Mark Kimber. And now he's getting pressure from the side and behind. And Kimber's having to look over his right shoulder. And Fabien Bock nearly sent it up the inside of Kilian Gerhardt. A double title on the cards in his rookie season as a DD2 driver is fast slipping away for Mark Kimber. Matthias Jere Jacobsen now up into P2. So Glenn Van Parijs is going to concentrate on what he needs to do and what he wants to do. What he wants to prove to do is to win 4 titles in the BNL Karting Series and become one of 3 people to have done it. And one has already done that this weekend. And what a way that would close out the 15th anniversary season of the championship. Ragnar Virus makes his way past Devin Sigardi. That's a good pass there for ninth position. So Ragnar Virus is hoping to solidify a possibility of of third in the championship. And it could be close between him and Matthias Jette Jakobsen. Well, it might not be in his hands anymore because the Dane has now hit the front of the field. The only thing with regards to Jette Jakobsen is the fact that he's already had a couple of front fairing penalties, and that was yesterday. Today, however, his front fairing, the clips have not been in. So Mark Kimber now gets himself back up into what is sixth position as, oh, right, another change. This time, Chris Harnon decides to go up the inside of Glenn van Parijs for that position. Which means, folks, it's now countback time. At this moment, Glenn van Parijs and Mark Kimber with 2 drop scores, it's 196 points apiece. I did say it was going to come down to the wire. I meant it. And the proof is in the pudding right now. So Mark Kimber now into 6th place. If he takes 5th, he takes the title. Glenn's got to get himself back up into 2nd position. I mean, it's too close to call. It's so close to call. I'm doing these calculations on the fly, folks. Because even if Mark Kimber gets to 5th and Glenn van Parijs gets 2nd, he wins by 3 points. That's how close these titles come down to. Now Ragnar Virus now overtakes Kilian Gerhard. So, and Matthias Jette Jakobsen, who leads the field by just over 5.5 tenths of a second, is leading Chris Harnon. Now Van Parijs is trying to pick up the pace and actually nigh on equalled Chris Harnon on his previous lap time. Just under 5 minutes to go. And it's so, so close. But you know what's even funnier? If it does stay as it is, that Kimber stays in 6th and Glenn van Parijs takes 3rd. Right, Kimber, a win at pre-final 1 at Genk, round 1. A win in both finals at Marienborg. He hasn't won a race since. Glenn, however, at the moment has 4 race victories to his credit. So if it goes to a tiebreaker, Van Parijs takes a 4th respective title. But I know the man way too well for him to settle for 3rd. He wants to be at the front of the field and winning to secure that title. He's still got 7.25 minutes to do, plus an additional lap. So there's plenty of time for him to conserve those tyres, wait for the moment, and then send it up the inside when Chris Harnon is napping. And he's definitely keeping pace with the 4:07 from the Netherlands. Chris Harnon in his own right, a previous champion. Well, funny enough, when did... I'm just trying to remember now. Chris Harnon, if I remember correctly, was in the fight for multiple titles, but hasn't won a BNL Karting Series title. But he's been there or thereabouts, you know, when he's raced against Mike van Vugt, Luca Leistra, a whole host of other drivers. And his dad, Paul, is still as crazy as ever whenever I see him. So it's just dependent on how quickly, well, when does Glenn van Parijs pull the pin on the grenade, throws it in the general direction of one Chris Harnon and get past. But Mark Kimber, the gap between him and Lawrence Seifried is around about 3.17 seconds. Now, the biggest thing that is determining this championship is how much in this last race of the season that Kimber has struggled. 2 major moments in the opening 90 seconds of the race. That's what is interesting. But he is European champion. He's a 2-time Grand Finals winner, 2016 and 2021, junior and senior respectively. And I knew for a fact that if Mark Kimber got in a gearbox kart, he would be able to do it. But now it changes. Well, Ragnar Virus has appeared from the shadows. Yep, so Ragnar Virus bumps down Mark Kimber to 7th position. It's all about these, and people think, how easy is it to keep a track of the scores? It's even more difficult than you might think. So with Kimber now in 7th, he could be at the mercy of Kylian Gerhardt, who's not too far behind in the 425. But Glenn is just keeping it nice and consistent. He's just putting in his laps. Last 3 laps, well, he's just put in a personal best, 54.416, less than 3/10 behind Chris Harnan, actually went quicker. So the last 3 laps, it's been a 54.4, a 54.6, a 54.6. That's the amount of consistency that Glenn Van Parijs has got from the amount of times he's put laps in at this circuit. And I hate to, if I asked him, he'll probably say, I've probably lost count by now, but probably in 5 figures at the very, very least. When you know a circuit as well as that, then you have the opportunity just to showcase that you can be consistent. So we are, right, so I'm just keeping an eye on what's happening with Mark Kimber at the moment. So he has been passed by Ragnar Virus. So that puts Glenn Van Parijs on 16 points for this race. Mark Kimber on 9 points. But it comes back to the count back. If Kimber had more races in his pocket and it was tied, he'd win. But 2 wins at the opening round, 2 wins at this round, a second, and now currently in 3rd. And that's mirrored Glenn Van Parijs' performance from earlier on this season. And with 3.5 minutes plus an additional lap, as the sun is starting to lower over the trees, the shadows you can actually see on the circuit, including the drivers and their karts. 3 minutes and 12 seconds still to go. And Van Parijs is just calmly getting on with the business that he knows he needs to do. But the biggest development would be if a driver by the name of Kylian Gerhardt gets past Mark Kimber, that's it. The title goes to Glenn on the final race of the season. And it will mean a hell of a lot, not just to Glenn, but I think the Belgian racing community, because there's a lot of talent in this country. Having been to this circuit and commentated probably the best part of nearly 1,000 races, I have an appreciation for the Belgian culture and also the passion for motorsport, with so many great talents having come from this particular part of the world. But Matthias Jette Jacobsen leading by about a second. There's Lawrence Seifried going through turn number 10, followed by Ragnar Virus and Mark Kimber. Mark Kimber started to improve his pace. Chris Harnon's got the fastest lap, 54.333. That was on lap number 10 as we head into the final 2 minutes of the season. And this Dane has been very impressive. Didn't have the luck with the front fairings, unfortunately, yesterday. But today's been a different story. Going through down the Jutterplan for what's going to be lap number 13. So probably get maybe 16 laps at a push. I would imagine, I'm not too sure if Glenn might have calculated the points coming into this final round, but he's looking a bit closer to Chris Harnan. He's only 3/10 away. He can go for second if he wants to, but he might hold station and just bring it home. Sometimes being safer is a little bit easier than going for a move. Ian Gapp's final on day 1 for DD2 Masters, and that title battle still to come. 45 seconds to go, and Glenn Van Parijs sets his fastest lap, 54.368 seconds. I've just seen Maxime Dedix trying to close in. Oh, he needs to make a clean pass on Matis Malinowskis. He doesn't want the 4-1-4 clattering into him like yesterday. They've got Devin Sigardi just up ahead. But we're going to go on to our 15th and penultimate lap of this season. And the timer will count down to 0 as Matthias Jette Jakobsen now moves out of turn number 4. That is it. Time has expired. One more lap to go. And Glenn van Parijs is poised to make it another history-making moment in the 15th anniversary of the BNL karting series. Battle still going on between Maxim Didix, Matis Malinowskis and Devin Sigardi for 9th as they hurtle their way down the Europalan. Send from Didix, backs out of it. Very wise to do so. He didn't want to end up retiring from the race on the last day of the season. But now the penultimate final lap board of the season is being shown. Denmark's Matthias Jette Jakobsen sees it first. Then Chris Harnen. And looking over his right shoulder, the man in 3rd position. Glenn van Parijs waiting until the checkered flag falls. He came into this race weekend with a 51-point disadvantage to Mark Kimber. And then the comeback of ages has come into fruition. And it's not just happened with one driver this weekend, it's happened with another. So, ladies and gentlemen, Matthias Jette Jakobsen will very shortly come out of the final corner. He will take the victory. But by my provisional calculations, it's 2 from Belgium that make it 4 titles, because Glenn van Parijs on sheer countback is a 4-time BNL Karting Series champion. I don't think he knows it yet. But once everything's confirmed, I think that Glenn van Parijs and Kai Gilles will make Belgium very, very proud right now. It's going to be a slow in-lap. I don't think there's much celebration because he probably doesn't know. But by my calculations, Glenn van Parijs joins Kai Gilles as 2 Belgians on home soil at the Home of Champions, taking 4 titles. Wow, what a moment. Matthias Jette Jakobsen takes the victory ahead of Chris Harnen, Glenn van Parijs, Patrick Knowles, Lockham Ellis, Lawrence Seyfried rounds out the top 5 with Ragnar Virus, Mark Kimber, Clean Guerra, Devin Sigardi, Matis Malinowskis rounding out the top 10. Maxime Didix, Anthony Millet, Yannick Jacobs, Fabian Bock, Jules Cousin and Hugo Schwarzer round out the top 16 with Jaro Dekkers unfortunately not taking the start.